Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we're honoring our nation's heroes. In North Carolina, we meet a Special Forces veteran who continues to serve, but this time to help the people of Ukraine. And in Georgia, we spend time with a retired Marine who's helping veterans heal through art. But first, we turn our attention to a gender gap in some of medicine's top specialties. Nora O'Donnell visits a San Francisco hospital to see how a group of female heart surgeons are changing the future of medicine.
Dr. Laura Scrimger had never met a female cardiothoracic surgeon until she met Dr. Amy Fiedler.
I think it's a real problem for women in medicine in all fields, but particularly in surgery.
Scrimger is a fellow working under Fiedler at UCSF Medical Center in California, and they are among just a handful of women in their field.
I get mistaken for a nurse, I get mistaken for a physical therapist, one time for food service. I mean, pretty much anything other than being the cardiac surgeon.
A recent study shows that women were 32% more likely to die if treated by a male surgeon rather than a female one. Men were also more likely to die in the hands of male surgeons.
Even just to have one person to look up to can make all the difference for some people.
They say getting more women in leadership at hospitals can lead to better family leave policies and more opportunities for female physicians. Patients can help by requesting female doctors.
We're thinking about and trying to figure out how we can get more women, get more people of color, get more diversity at the higher ends of academic leadership.
We need more women, we need more Black and brown people to come into medicine.
Dr. Charlene Blake was the cardiac anesthesiologist on this team that made history in December, believed to be the first all-female heart transplant team. Their group photo calling attention to the lack of diversity in medicine.
I had to look around the room. I was like, oh, we were. Look at that. We're all women here. This is incredible. I haven't seen this before.
Every single person in that room that day that we did that heart transplant deserved to be there and is a high performer and was providing the absolute best care to that patient. And I think that's really inspiring.
We continue today's show with a spotlight on our nation's veterans. Women make up over 17% of active duty U.S. military members, but there's still a widespread lack of recognition for active and retired women in the U.S. Armed Forces. CBS San Francisco's John Ramos takes us to a ceremony in California honoring many of their achievements.
Forward, halt!
Salutes to the military are not unusual. They happen several times a year across the country. But recognizing women who serve is rare indeed. The city of Vallejo offered a special thank you to women who have had to fight for the right to fight for their country.
For your small town to recognize your service after so long is very, very gratifying, very beneficial.
Women have played a key role in the wartime history of this nation, but even as their role has become more central to the mission, their efforts are often overlooked. Dolores Mack joined the Navy in 1955, later retiring as a Chief Petty Officer. She says women veterans have stayed quiet about their service for too long.
It's a time for women now to stand up and not be afraid to speak and be a part of our country. But we've always been in the background, and now we're coming up to be equal and stand up for what we believe is right.
There's so many women that have broken barriers, that have done things that we will never even know, but where the male counterpart are being recognized, a lot of women are not.
Perhaps because it has been such a struggle, many women veterans don't talk much about their service. As a result, they've had a hard time getting consideration when it comes to benefits for both retired and active duty service members.
Not every woman is willing to stand up for what is right for themselves, for what is right for the person next to them. It's important because if not you, then who?
So as a token of gratitude and encouragement, the city offered women veterans a certificate of appreciation, one small symbol that their sacrifice is not going unseen. And even though she's now 90 years old, Chief Dolores Mack says she cherishes the recognition and urges current servicewomen to speak up for fair treatment.
Because if we don't, everything we fought for will be lost. We've got to continue. We've got to be on equal balance with everything. Because we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere.
Going into battle outnumbered has always been a standard of courage. It's something women have experienced for a long time.
Coming up, a veteran's bold mission to help the citizens and soldiers of Ukraine. This is Eye on America. Our celebration of veterans continues with a story that stretches from North Carolina to Ukraine. Ben Tracy introduces us to a former U.S. Special Forces member who's made several trips to the war-torn nation to deliver supplies to citizens and share his expertise with Ukrainian fighters.
This is all civilians living here, and you can see the destruction with your own eyes.
Seeing this with his own eyes is why Ali Medina says he had to come to Ukraine.
I actually don't have words to describe my feelings right now.
In this bombed-out village, he met this 77-year-old woman. Her name is Stefania Nikolaevna, and she's clutching a photo of her son. She says he died defending the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the early days of the war.
This lady did nothing bad to anyone. Look what the Russians did to her house. This is evil. Simply evil.
And many civilians are dying.
The bombardment of major cities.
Russian forces now control most of Severodonetsk.
After watching coverage of the war at his home in North Carolina, Medina became increasingly angry about what he saw as Russian atrocities.
Was there a moment where you go from just feeling bad and angry to saying, I'm going there now?
Yes. So I saw the moms writing their point of contact on the kid's back with a permanent marker, because in case the woman got taken to get raped or got killed, the kid can go to their next of kin. So I'm like, man, I really need to go.
Are you thinking you're going there to do humanitarian work, to be kind of a citizen journalist, or to fight?
Honestly, I had no idea.
What he did know is that he's well trained. He spent 13 years in the U.S. Army. Medina joined after his family fled their native Syria and later Egypt, and he became an American citizen. He deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, but left the military in 2019 after he says he was injured by a missile strike.
So when Ukraine happened, I'm like, I definitely can go and help and also regain my purpose and what I used to do before. Because I got out of the Army before I wanted to get out. I had to get out.
He's now made trips to Ukraine, each time packing up several large duffel bags.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Filled with supplies.
So these are the front plates.
Everything from body armor to children's medicine.
So we're packed.
Each time he leaves behind his wife and their 2 young daughters, knowing this could be the trip where he is captured or killed.
Guys, give me a hug. I love you so much. Pray for Papa and pray for the courageous people of Ukraine. Okay?
How do you value going over there to help strangers, knowing you could leave your wife without a husband and your 2 daughters without a father?
I think about this a lot. I think that, am I selfish by doing this and leaving my family? But I decided to go there and help because in my book, I think humans should care about other humans in a hostile environment. We're all connected to each other.
It can take a toll. He encountered mass graves in the town of Bucha, believed to be the site of a massacre by Russian troops. In the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv,
all this stuff for you guys.
Medina delivers thousands of dollars worth of donations.
This whole thing was donated from guys from Special Forces in Colorado.
But he doesn't just provide supplies. He also advises and trains Ukrainians to fight and defend themselves.
I give them advice on how they should do certain things on the front line.
That battlefield advice extends to this soundstage in Los Angeles, where he's a consultant for the TV show SEAL Team. It's produced by CBS Studios.
You're literally on a Zoom call from Ukraine in a war zone, giving advice to a TV show about doing fake battles.
Yes, but I thank God for the paycheck because I need it.
That work is funding part of what you're doing over there.
Yeah,
Given the risks that you're taking, what will make this all worthwhile for you?
We're Ukraine to win. I think the whole world should learn from the Ukrainians how to love our country, how to fight for our freedom.
And you have the support of all the world.
Ми маємо підтримку всього світу.
And he plans to do everything he can to help them win.
I promise you, I will help you with this house.
And rebuild their shattered lives.
We now head to our nation's capital to check out a new project taking shape under the Lincoln Memorial. Scott McFarland goes underground to see the $69 million makeover.
The Lincoln Memorial is a towering monument to a towering figure in U.S. history and lures 8 million visitors a year. A magnet for school groups, tourists, and families. And a stage for major protests, speeches, and prayer services.
Amen.
Including Pastor Mark Batterson's annual Easter gathering.
Does it feel like a non-political place?
It does. It feels like this is bigger than some of the polarizations that we're experiencing, some of the tensions that we feel.
Most people don't imagine that this is under here.
Beginning this summer, the National Park Service begins a major renovation below the 19-foot, 175-ton statue of America's 16th president. It's a facelift to its foundation.
This is how it looked in 1922?
Exactly, right. Yeah, this is after they completed the construction.
They'll transform this massive hidden underground space into a 15,000 square foot interactive museum. It's a nearly $70 million project, much of it funded by charitable donations, and will require only the closure of a small visitor space below ground. The memorial chamber remains accessible.
This unfinished area essentially becomes a big theater.
As crews add interactive displays of the memorial's iconic moments, from MLK's I Have a Dream speech to a landmark performance in 1939.
Imagine hearing Marian Anderson singing in there, projected into this space. And the beautiful thing about it is when that production is done and the lights dim, it goes back to the very raw, unfinished space.
The new exhibit itself is expected to draw 1 million visitors a year and will also spotlight the underground architecture itself, which in 1922 was erected to give Lincoln his lofty perch above much of the nation's capital, and which continues to draw families like Gino Josephs.
Wow, this is pretty powerful. It gave me a really strong sense of what America is supposed to be about.
The National Park Service has set a prospective date for the reopening, July 4th, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Up next, the case of a forgotten hero now awarded the highest military award. Stay with us. It's a long overdue honor for a Vietnam War hero who risked his life to save 3 fellow soldiers. Nearly 6 decades later, retired Colonel Paris Davis has finally been awarded the Medal of Honor for his act of valor. Catherine Herridge has his story.
58 years after he bore the battle, we honor a true hero of our nation.
With that, President Biden awarded the Medal of Honor to 83-year-old Paris Davis, one of the first black officers in the Army's elite Green Berets.
It's northeast of Saigon near Bong Son.
In 1965, Davis was hit by grenade and gunfire during a 19-hour battle in Vietnam. Among other acts of heroism, Davis rescued his own wounded soldiers under heavy enemy fire. Davis defied an order to evacuate, as he told Phil Donahue in 1969.
Well, I told him, sir, I'm just not going to leave. I still have an American out there.
Davis's commanding officer, Billy Cole, immediately nominated him for the Medal of Honor. But then the records mysteriously vanished.
There's still a question is what the devil went on. Why did it take so long?
CBS News sat down with Davis and his daughter, Reagan Davis Hopper.
Reagan, was race a factor?
I suspect it might have been, and I think that's a shame. So I'm so proud of us to finally set this right.
That took the work of this diverse group of volunteers, many who didn't know Davis, but worked to revive his case.
It's really very emotional.
Are you wearing that medal for the men and women you served with?
Well, mostly for the men and women I served with, but It's for America, too.
The retired colonel becomes one of 65 living recipients of the Medal of Honor.
Incredible guy.
He's my hero, and I'm just so thrilled that America's going to get to know him too.
We close our show aboard a bus called the Painted Buffalo, rolling through the country to help veterans heal from the invisible wounds of war. About 41% of veterans struggle with their mental health, from depression and anxiety to sleep disorders and even PTSD. Meg Oliver gets crafty with a retired Marine, helping vets find comfort through art therapy.
Oh, good girl, come on.
These days, you can find retired Marine and mom Jessica Rambo living in the woods just outside Atlanta.
Sometimes I can't believe how far I've come.
It's her first home with roots, a place she intends to be both a refuge and an art studio for veterans struggling with their mental health.
When you leave the service, there's no transition, there's no detox, there's no how do I become a normal human being again, and it's extremely difficult to get a veteran to open up.
Through art, she says veterans can find a way to release and heal.
What is it about art therapy that helps them?
I think it's just being able to create something or tell a story without communication. They can be alone in their safe place, and it's just another tool in a toolbox. I call it creating your own mental health care package.
Born into a big military family, Jessica always had two loves, her artwork and the armed forces.
Did your mom encourage you to join the military?
Absolutely not.
She wanted anything else?
Anything else. You know, I was an artist, I was creative, but I knew I wanted to do something bigger and greater than myself.
In 2006, she enlisted with the Marines and traveled the world as a combat camera person. But only 4 years into her dream job, Jessica was in a car accident that forced her to retire early. She suffered a traumatic brain injury, internal damage, and became addicted to alcohol and painkillers.
I had a failed marriage. My relationship with my children really was affected. And so I knew that if I was going to save that relationship, I had to end all be all. And one of my children had said something that really affected me, really hit the root that I needed it to hit, and that was it.
What did they say?
Every morning he was missing breakfast, and he said, "Mom, can I please go to school tomorrow? I'm hungry. I have to wait till lunch," and that was unacceptable to me.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah, mine too. Just reliving how that was back then.
All the things that keep tripping you up.
Jessica got sober and rediscovered her other passion. She enrolled in art school, which helped her overcome her own struggles with depression and anxiety.
That really gave me a new path, a new way to serve my community.
That path was the Paint Can Project, a mission to bring ammo cans filled with art supplies to vets across the country.
With the logos for me.
She bought an old school bus, named it the Painted Buffalo, and hit the road.
Thank you, sir.
Why did you call it the Painted Buffalo?
Bison have been used and abused through United States history and then kind of discarded. And the veteran, the same way, were used and abused for our country, and then some of us feel like we're discarded.
Hi, I'm Jess, and I built this schoolie for my family and I.
The road trip journey started in 2019 with her son Liam, crisscrossing the country. They've hit 38 states and helped hundreds of veterans battling mental health issues.
And we're hoping to be able to get the veterans to make some pinch pots.
On this day, we rode in the Painted Buffalo to a nearby art event. The bus she now calls her old home after 4 years on the road.
You're in the living room. I'm in the living room. Yep. And where are you? I'm in the captain's chair.
At the American Legion Post 245 in Adairsville, Georgia, the room is filled with veterans there for one purpose.
Trying our best to spread veteran awareness and mental health recovery, and our way of doing that is through making and telling stories.
The impact seen almost immediately.
Hard sleeping.
Yeah.
Hard getting in a regular rhythm.
Lamar Wilkie was in the Army for 3 years in Vietnam. The 75-year-old says alcohol used to be his coping mechanism for stress.
Is this helping?
Yes, it helps.
How so?
Keeps your mind on
It keeps your mind occupied.
creative something.
Sean Allen struggles with PTSD. The 46-year-old spent 4 years in Iraq with the Marines. He found Jessica on Instagram and decided to take a chance.
I feel like playing in the mud like a kid again.
Yeah. Free your mind a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of nervous just because I'm not used to meeting a whole bunch of people and I don't really get out much. So now I'm doing all right, though.
If there's a veteran out there watching this who may be struggling with their mental health, what do you want them to know?
Reach out. You know, I was very alone and quiet about what I was dealing with, but as soon as I picked up the phone and called one of my friends, they were like, oh yeah, me too. And instantly I felt better because I knew I wasn't alone. And that's all of us can do that, whether you're a veteran or not.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.
This episode of Eye on America is sponsored by Prudential. Plan, invest, insure. Retire with Prudential.